Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 15th episode of the Oreninc podcast series with Mickey Fulp, the Mercenary Geologist. Hi, Mickey.
Hi, Kai.
Hey, we are sitting in New Orleans. We're here at the New Orleans Investment Conference put on by Brian Linden and Jefferson Financial Group, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a phenomenal 2 days, actually. I've been quite surprised. I've never been out here in New Orleans. The retail attendance is actually blowing me away. There's a lot of interest. People are actually paying $1,000 to listen to the speakers here. Topics are quite diverse. Real estate, gold, commodities, junior mining, anything you can invest in pretty much is present. I think I've even been pitched a real estate project in Belize. So it's quite interesting. It's a quite diverse group of investors here, but also presenters. The who is who of the mining industry is here, as I'm joined here by Mickey. But also, all the likes of Rick Rule, Brent Cook, they're all bringing or presenting in front of a full audience, right? And you can attest to that, right?
I presented in front of a full audience on Wednesday afternoon. Talked about seasonal trading and the venture exchange, how you can pick good stocks off during tax loss season and sell them 10 days later and make really good money. That was well received. This is a bit of a different conference. It attracts only high net worth investors or accredited investor types because it costs $1,000 plus or $600 to $1,000 to register for it. And one of the best things about it is the Big Easy, and the wining and dining is unparalleled. So that's always a benefit to being in New Orleans, and it's generally a nice time to be here with the weather. We've had 3 really gorgeous days. Not hot, not cold, just
absolutely gorgeous
balmy.
outside. Yeah. And what I have to mention as well, I'm really impressed by the discipline of the investors. They get up early. They attend breakfast meetings at 7:15 a.m. and they don't go, like, the conference ends and the workshop ends at 9 o'clock at night. That's like a 4-hour day. That's insane.
Yep.
So I'm impressed by that personally. Just quickly, I want to talk about the Oreninc Index and what we've seen here over the last couple of weeks since our last interview here. And I was quite surprised in what I mentioned during the last interviews that I was expecting a spike in financing activity. Well, that was a moment, like a picture in history, like just a 1 day thing, kind of a glimpse there, or a blip on the radar screen. But the market activity has been subdued still, and I'm surprised. And we've talked about this before hitting the record button, but it has to do with the explosion of the oil price and the resurgence of the U.S. dollar. And I think you're going to touch on that as well.
Yeah, gold's at $1,270. It's been somewhere $1,268, $1,275 for the last few days, and it really has to do with the surge in dollar index. Dollar index now above 95. We just looked up WTI oil at 53.80. So those aren't really good for the gold market or the gold price because of the negative correlations, especially with the U.S. dollar. We've seen that time and time this year. And so I think what it's done is this conference is subdued, if you will. A lot of really smart investors here, but we're not seeing a lot of deal flow. And what we are seeing are people trying to complete the deals that we saw in Beaver Creek and talked about, the explosion of U.S.-based new gold companies. And so they are just trying to complete their financings right now, and I think some of them perhaps are struggling to complete those very large financings, or for newcos, they're 8-figure financings, and you don't see that many of those around. Now the projects, I think, warrant that, but what's happened, I had an institutional broker tell me yesterday, or a former institutional broker, that with the lowering of the gold price, it's lost $30-$40 here over the last 3 to 4 weeks, that the institutions will be getting redemptions, and so the money that they had committed is probably out the door now. They basically commit money and they spend that money as money flows in to their funds, and if money is flowing out, which it would with gold going down, then that money is no longer available to put into deals.
Yeah. And something you mentioned just at the beginning as well is like seasonality and tax loss selling.
Yeah,
And I think we're already seeing an early version of that. It's not even November here. I think, what day is it? It's the 27th or something today.
Yeah,
right?
so people are front running tax loss selling. I've been doing that for years. I think the cat's out of the bag, and everybody knows that happens now. Now, it will not reach its peak until December 15th, plus or minus 2 to 3 days. We talked about that in our seasonality talk on Wednesday. But yeah, we've seen in the index, Toronto Venture Index is down something on the order of 15, 17 points since it peaked a couple of weeks ago at 797. It's somewhere down around 780 right now. But we've seen a strong pickup in volumes. So we're trading 90 to 100 million shares a day right now, and that does look like a bit of tax loss selling going on right now.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple investors also in Germany, and they're just quite negative on at least the outlook for the rest of the year. And then come December 15th, hopefully things will change again. And I have to admit, I've been doing some tax loss selling as well.
Yeah, me too.
I've got out of a couple stocks here just because the sentiment is really grim, to be honest, right now.
Yeah,
it's not negative, but
I'm getting out of legacy positions that have so I save all those up, and I've had a very good year in the market, and so now it's time to balance that out, and so I don't have any capital gains tax for this year, and so the things I'm selling have just been in the waste bin, if you will, waiting to be sold one year or the other, and I've got 2 or 3 more years of that to do. So
no, that's I'm working on that book. I'm piling up the garbage. No, but overall, let's talk about the mood here at the conference. I think it's overall positive. Despite the tax loss selling that's going on, the overall that gold is not developing as everybody's hoping. Right?
Yeah, I think it will. I don't unless the dollar goes on a great big run again, and part of it's driven by the idea that Trump's going to appoint a relatively hawkish Fed chairman. I think that's increased confidence in the U.S. dollar. Someone that will raise rates, but that remains to be seen. We know that Trump wants a weak dollar, and it would be counterintuitive, it seems, for him to appoint a Fed chairman who's hawkish about raising interest rates at this point.
That'd be interesting, the outcome of that. When are they switching?
I think it's in the beginning of next year. I think maybe
right?
February 1 or something is the date that it's announced, or the changeover happens sometime in the first quarter of next year.
So while the gold price is down, we've been seeing a rally in the base metal prices.
We have.
So that's another topic. Like copper is up in comparison to the
copper
gold,
I think is about 316, 317 right now. All these metals have fallen off their yearly highs a bit, but lead, zinc, copper have all come off just a bit. But they went up pretty fast, so we like that when they go up fast and then immediately come back down, do a little spike, and sit there and consolidate. So you get these stepwise move ups, and I expect that to continue.
That reminds me, I've seen a couple of new deals, I think, in the zinc space just here at the conference that I hadn't noticed before. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Another question, we haven't talked about that before, so that's an off the cuff question. A topic of conversation is the Uranium One scandal.
Yeah.
Here, do you have a take on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've known about this thing since 2009. It was swept under the rug in the Obama administration, but it involves the sale of a Canadian based uranium company, or a Canadian listed uranium company called Uranium One, and who controlled the Christensen Ranch uranium project in Wyoming, which produces about 20% of U.S. uranium, and it was sold to the Russians and then taken private. So, and the Clintons have been highly involved with that. There's allegations of kickbacks. Some very well-known Vancouver and Toronto-based entrepreneurs, the creme de la creme were either big or shareholders of Uranium One and or management of Uranium One, and so there's trails of money being moved into the Clinton Foundation as this uranium deal is done. So it's been a big deal in the U.S. here. It's kind of
especially here in the South, it feels like. So.
right, and a lot of people that don't aren't privy to American business news don't see that sort of thing. So
I'm really curious to see Tucker Carlson speak on Saturday.
Yeah,
see if he touches on that.
Yeah. So he's
I'll
the
make time to
keynote
see him.
speaker, and we're all looking forward to that. And then there's a banquet on Saturday night after his keynote address, and that's always just fun. So with Zydeco music and Cajun food, and people are
Nice.
dancing. So we all look forward to
So
the final
I-
gala event.
I think it's like this is a good overview of the markets we've seen in the last couple of weeks. You know, we touched on the highlights, we touched on the points. Like, what's the mood here at the conference? As you said, it's quite festive.
Yeah,
You know,
it was
it's positive
New
and
Orleans.
festive.
It's
New Orleans. How can
New
you not
Orleans
be
is a festive town,
in a good mood out here?
Yeah.
But overall, it's like the people I've spoken to is like we got a booth here with Oreninc. There are a lot of people stop by. They're quite optimistic on what's coming, and they know they have to invest in real assets, hard assets, being it real estate in Belize or somewhere else.
Right.
But also gold and gold commodities are good leverage, and I'm still positive. I haven't changed my opinion on the markets here, and the companies will still have to finance going forward to finance their phase 2, phase 3 programs. It might be delayed into the new year now, so we're not seeing the activity that I
Well,
have
and
personally
generally
expected.
this is not, from my experience, is not a particularly active time for financings. You know, we're coming up to the end of 2017. We're well into the fourth quarter now, and that's usually a time for news and
Results, studies.
and so we expect financings to really pick up in the early part of next year.
Yeah, as I said last week, during our last interview, we saw a blimp on the radar screen there with a small spike in volume and in the index as well, but that has come down again. So you might be right. We'll probably have to see what's happening there in January. No, I was just wrapping it up, and Mickey, I thank you for your time again, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks a lot, Kai. Always my pleasure.